31 verse 15. And again, it's a double portion. And it says, Vayetzu Moshe ve'Elazar Kohen v'kol Nasi ha'Eidah l'Krotam ha'mechutz ha'machaneh. So what has been going on over here, that basically the Jewish people have gone to battle. Before Moshe died, he was told to take vengeance against the Midianites for the wrongs that the Midianites did. They had to take vengeance against the Midianites. The Midianites were believed to have caused the plague against the Jewish people by sending their women to seduce them. And everybody from the tribe of Israel was supposed to send out 1,000 men to join the battle. And Pinchas led the battle. Pinchas, the Kohen led the battle. And they waged war against Midian. And they killed every male, and they killed the kings. They killed the 5 kings of Midian, and then they took the women captive and their children, and they took all the livestock as spoils, and then they burnt all their cities and all their buildings. And then they brought to Moshe and to Elazar and the booty at their camp, which was at the Jordan near Jericho. So now, verse 13. And Moshe and Elazar and all the princes went out to greet them. Okay, chapter 13, verse 1. Why did they go out to greet them? Because they saw that the youth of Israel were going out to grab the spoils from the war. And Moshe got angry at the officers, Sarei Alafim, the Sarei Meos, Abaim Tzavam Milchama. Moshe got upset at the officers who were in charge over the 1,000 and the general, and over the hundreds. The officers of the thousands, officers of the hundreds. I don't know how it works in an army. I guess over 100 is maybe what a major. What is it if you're over 100? What are you called then? Depends on the army, I guess. But I think in Israel it's like called a major, and over 1,000 is what a colonel. I don't know. General.
Well, those are ranks.
Those are ranks. It doesn't work according to the number of people you command.
Right.
You can be a colonel without being the commander of the
I got it.
The
Yeah.
Romans used to have centurions that were captains of 100.
Yeah.
It's like was the number. Just another thing, the number.
The number. Okay, yeah, but I just was trying to think the way my nephew was telling me that the way in his battle units how it was divided up. But I guess each place is going to be different, and also depends probably on the unit. So anyway, so they had these officers, and they Seth, I Thera. Okay, so Moshe got upset about them. Why was he upset at those officers? Rashi, we're in chapter 31, verse 14. Those who are appointed over the armies. The people had sinned. They've done a mistake. So Moshe blames the officers. If the people make a mistake, we blame the officers. We don't blame the people. I guess I don't know what the U.S. government's policy is, but like if when there was like a massacre, like a war crime, the people do it, but do they blame the officers? If the officers didn't actually do it, but their men did it.
It's not about blaming the officers. They're accountable.
So they're
They
accountable.
tell their men what to do, which is
But they're not gonna. Are they gonna get court-martialed if their men have the ones who did it and they had nothing to do with it?
There are consequences, but it's not as bad as the people themselves.
I mean, if you consider the failure of leadership, and maybe it would affect, you know much more than I would, it would affect promotions and so forth.
Oh yeah, your career is over. Your career is going to be over. Yeah. So Moshe said to them, because they weren't supposed to let the women live, especially because the women were the source of this sin. That's how the Midianites had seduced the Jewish people. Moshe said, did you let the women live? You of That's what happened with the children of Israel, and they sinned by the word of Bilam. That's how they trespassed against God by the matter of Peor, and there was a tremendous plague about the assembly of God. What does Rashi say? Hein heina, magid shayu makirno son, zui shenechshal poniba. The Jewish people recognized these women and said, "Oh, this is the one who caused that man to sin." That the Midianite women were sent as like the expression, like the term is like the honey trap. That's how they caught them. You could do a lot more damage with sugar than with pepper, right? So they were seducing the Jewish men, and this was the advice of Bilam. Rashi says, "B'dvar Bilam amar lehem, afilu atem machnisim kol hamona shebaolam ein atem yochol lahem." Even if you bring all the armies in the world, you won't be able to defeat the Jews. Shema merubim atem min hamitzrim. Are you going to be more numerous than the Egyptians? So you sheish me'os rachel bachor. There were 600,000 of them. Bo v'asiyachem eitzah. Come on, I'm going to give you advice. And Olam shel elu soneh zimahu v'kulu. Their God hates promiscuity. If you want to get them in trouble, have them commit these sexual sins with your women. And that was the technique that was used. And now the Jewish people went to battle against the Midianites, and what did they do? They kept these women alive. So they specifically did this sin. And now Moshe says to them, "Ata hirgu kol zachar bataf, v'chol isha yodeat ish mishkav zachar harogu." Kill every man amongst the young children, meaning every male child, and every woman that has ever basically been with a man, you have to kill. You have to kill.
Why kill the man?
Because why do you think? I mean, what would you say, Steve?
Part of it was a threat, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Later on.
yeah, because that's what the Torah said. The Torah said every male you have to kill.
Preemptive.
I mean, we would not do this today, no question about it. But in those times, that was the understanding of the way you waged war. I mean, that's the real answer. The real answer was that you had a choice, either kill or be killed. So they had to do it. Rashi says, "Mikol isha yodat ish." I mean, Rambam says that before they entered the land of Canaan, they sent them a letter encouraging them to run away. And that's not in the text of the Torah. Anyway, every man who knows a woman, you have to be killed. So Rashi says it doesn't mean every woman who is not a virgin. It means any woman who is capable of not being a virgin. And by the way, Rashi is going to say the test, but according to the Bible and the Talmud, that means any girl who's over the age of 3. So Rashi tells us here, with Neat Tzitzevi room, they will pass them in front of the tzitz. The tzitz was the golden forehead plate that the Kohen Gadol would wear. If she was capable of having intercourse, her face would turn yellowish, and that's how they knew that she was old enough, and then they would kill her. Hey, go grab a chumash behind you. Grab a chumash behind you. Right there, Ian. One more over to the left. Yeah, chumash with Rashi. Right there, right in front of you. Ian, left, your left. Right there, down.
Fourth shelf down. The sign's up.
That's-
Sign's up.
Yeah. There you go. And who's your friend, Ian?
My name is Gilad.
Gilad?
Gilad Schneider.
Come on in, have a seat, Gilad. Where are you from, Gilad?
Well, now I'm from DC.
From what?
Now I'm from DC.
Wow.
A week ago. So,
And where'd you grow up?
Burgerfield, New Jersey.
Yeah, but by the way, you're a big boy. All right, good. All right. And where you live downtown?
I'm in DuPont Circle.
Okay, it's close. Yeah. All right, so we're in chapter 31, verse 18. We just said, or what they're doing the Rashi on Pasuk Yud Zayin, verse 17. We just said that every female was the age of 3. Every male had to be killed, every female at the age of 3, Harogu. Lama Chazar V'Omar. Why does it have to repeat that they have to be killed, Rashi says? V'Afsika Inyan. To interrupt it, this is the words of Rabbi Shmuel. Shemani Koreh Herku Kol Zachar Bataf, Chol Isha Yodat Ish, Kol Ataf Benoshim, Eni Yodea V'Chol Isha Yodat, Im Harogim Azcharim, O HaChayot Im Ataf, Kach Nemar Harogu. Meaning to say, Rashi is saying, why does it have to repeat the words Harogu twice? Hergu and Harogu. Because if I would just say, kill every male and the women who know a man, then I wouldn't know if you have to kill the girls with all the boys or just the boys over the age of 3. So that's why it repeats it. So this is, by the way, obviously, this is why when people talk about the Bible, they say, oh, the Christian Bible is so compassionate. The Hebrew Bible is so dark, so, vengeful, wrathful. These are the passages which are not politically correct and not talking about turning the other cheek, but they were real world advice. I mean, they were just saying, like, today, if you did this in the U.S. Army, it'd be war crimes, and we don't do this anymore, but this was the ancient world, and that's what they did.
First of all, usually when somebody complains, it's usually that they do it, because in Vietnam they did do it. And second of all, it's not a law forever. It's just what that was for that
At that time.
time
Well,
only.
Well, Ben wants to say, I'm sorry. What?
There was only one massacre,
Miwai.
which was at Miwai, and the guy who led it was
Yeah. What were you saying, Ben?
Well, I not to pick on your choice of wording, but I think it minimizes the awfulness of it to say it was not being politically correct, and that's the peak. I mean, this is saying, girls above age 3, if you believe with Rashi's interpretation, whether or not they've slept with anybody, the enemy or not, it's killing.
Yeah, you're killing everybody in battle, for sure. They were saying.
That's it's hard to see. It's hard to see how you would defend that, unless it's some sort of a broad statement about, because some women who sinned, every female above the age of 3 ought to be killed. I mean, that's just kind of crazy.
No, they're killing all the males too, not just the women. They're killing everybody.
These were prisoners of war. This happens after they return home and greeted there.
So it's not on the battlefield. It's not like you're running through them and you kill them because you're running over them.
I'm saying they're saying you can't keep them as your slaves. You can't keep them and sell them as currency, that you have to kill them, that they're your enemy. I'm not defending that this is the way we should behave today. I'm saying that this was the rules of engagement in the battle. That was what they said, that this is an idolatrous society, and the only way to exist in our world that we're creating is to get rid of them. Now, the problem is when we try and transfer this approach into today's world, that becomes incredibly problematic. But this is what it was in the time of the Torah, that already all the commentary is limited. And they say, first of all, it was, I think it was Seth who said it was just for that moment, or it was that war. And they said, we don't know who these nations are. And that's one way they limit it. Then they limit it by saying they were given the option to run away. And then they said that they are going to be, if you leave their women around, they're going to be a snare to you. And they're going to be, their whole purpose is going to be to lead you astray. And the fourth element that was clearly not followed, because all the great leaders of the Jewish people had foreign blood in them, like David, descendant of the Moabites, Moses from the Midianites. Married a Midianite. So we're all intermixed. All right. But they say, verse 18, every baby female, asher lo yadu mishkav zachar, who never knew a man, they could live.
I still have a thought.
Yes, Shashan.
You've killed all the adults.
Yes.
Women, you've killed all the men. You have these kids and they're 3 and 4 and 5.
No, under 3.
You have these kids.
All right, okay.
Who are 3 and 4 and 5. And the reason you're going to kill the 4s and 5s is because they may grow into people that will be a problem for you. But it seems to me that if you've killed all the adults who would make them bad influences, and you leave them among the people of Israel who will not make them into bad influences against the people of Israel, it's not clear to me why you're killing 4s and 5s, or 6s and 7s. You've taken away.
Right.
I mean, I look at it in the current context, and one of the things that's most upsetting to me is that Palestinians teach their children really terrible things. If you take them away from those really terrible people teaching terrible things, they won't be terrible. Why are we killing 3s and 4s and 5s, or 4s and 5s?
So first of all, the people try not to, but they were told they had to do it. And I guess they felt that one of two possibilities. A, they would still be influenced. People would know their heritage. They would know where they came from, that there were people from their world, from their homeland who were in existence, and they would naturally connect to them, and you can't imagine that they wouldn't. Or 2, they felt there was something inherently problematic with them, genetically or culturally or nationally, that these people would never be able, like they would grow up and find their roots, like Moses did. And like you could try raising Moses to be a pharaoh, but Moses is going to discover who his people really were. And it's like, I mean, we're living in a world where all the princes killed their younger brothers, right? So they didn't think that you could turn this person through education. They just did not believe in that. It's open. Let yourself in. Yeah.
I mean, not to minimize any individual act of cruelty, I think every individual act of cruelty is important, but like the Torah is happening in the broader context of the Bronze Age collapse, where you've had all these societies spring out through the Bronze Age, and you have this kind of technological development, and actually like the foundation of like the nation of Israel is happening as like most of the established societies in that area are going through some sort of collapse. Huge population decreases happen in the world in that time. Huge like steps back in technology, so that the world at the time of the founding of ancient Israel is just so chaotic and bloody. But this was, I mean, you were saying this is the ancient world, but specifically around the time of the Bronze Age collapse, this is just like the way everything was.
It could be, yeah. I mean, I'm not familiar with that history, but I'm going to take your word for it because you've always been correct in those areas. So, okay, it's an interesting insight. And thank you, Eitan. Rabbi Yosef, it's something to add, and then we'll do the next pasuk. Yes, Rabbi
Yeah,
Yosef.
your 4 answers are great. But what I was trying to say was that when people point a finger at somebody, it's usually because they're guilty of the same thing. And the Crusades, they didn't keep anybody alive, and they raped and they looted and they pillaged, and so that was in the name of the Christianity, which is the religion of love. Supposedly, they killed us because we supposedly killed Jesus. Like, so
The war crimes are going on to this day. You don't have to go to the Middle Ages. Like you can go.
Right, I'm just saying that when somebody points a finger at you, it's usually because they themselves are guilty of the same exact thing.
But the only thing is, we're the ones pointing the finger here. We're suggesting that maybe this is problematic, doesn't sit right with us, because it doesn't sit right with us, because we wouldn't act like this today. It would be very wrong to do this today. Okay, let's do the next question, because we could talk about this for hours. And it's, one of the most difficult parts of the Torah. It's not the only difficult part, but it's one of the most difficult parts for us to understand today. And it says, Vatem chanu michutz lamachaneh. So those of you who killed anybody, you have to camp outside the camp for 7 days. Kol reg nefesh, whoever killed a person, kol nogeh bechalal, whoever touched the carcass, titchatu, you need to be purified. B'yom hashlishi, b'yom hashvi, atem ushvichem. You and your captives. Basically, anybody, when you return from the battle, we assumed you became tamei by touching a dead body. You became tamei by touching a dead body. And so therefore, that's the concept. So you have to be, if you touch a dead body and you're tamei, you have to be purifying yourself on day 3 and day 7 outside the camp. What does it mean? Rashi says, "Mechutz lamachaneh, shelo yikansu azara." They're not allowed to enter into the temple area. And we know we've said this many times. There are 3 camps in the desert. There's the Machane Yisrael, Machane Levi, Machane Shechina, the Israelite camp, the Levite camp, and the Divine Presence camp. And that corresponds to the Mishkan, the Levite camp, and the Israelite camp. So you weren't allowed to enter into like the equivalent of the temple courtyard area if you were tamei from a dead body. She says, "Koreg nefesh." Rameir says, "Koreg b'davar amikabel tuma kasav b'davar." So here is the Torah is going to teach us a law, a complicated law about somebody as relates to this concept called ritual impurity, called tuma. The Torah is telling us that if you touch a person with a hey Sam, here, join us. Hey Larry. So the Torah is telling us that if you touch a person, a dead body with a metal utensil, then you are going to become a primary source of ritual impurity yourself. That's the basic idea. You don't have to touch the dead body directly. You just have to touch the metal that's touching the dead body. And I might think, let's say you shoot an arrow at him and that's enough for you to become tamei. You have to touch it. So basically, so you have to be touching. Either way, you become ritually impure from a dead body is either if you touch the dead body directly, or if you touch a metal object that's touching him, then it's like you touch the dead body directly, and then you require the ashes of the red heifer to be sprinkled upon you day 3 and day 7. Yeah. Let me just share one thought before we're going to have to stop in 2 minutes of Daf Mincha. But I just want to share that after Mincha we do what's called the Daf Yomi, and not everybody stays for Daf Yomi. So I want to share one idea because today is coming up in my favorite Daf in all of the Talmud is Daf Nun Hey. There's 2, and so since not everybody's going to have to stay, let me just share it. So I'll give you the cliff notes of it. There's 2 ideas on there that are so beautiful that make me cry. Okay, so one is there's this concept called, let's say somebody steals a beam. You steal my wooden beam, and then you build your house with it. You steal my wooden beam, you build a house in Shepherd Park. The house 2 houses down is going for like $2 million, right? So then I say, I want my beam back. You stole my beam. The guy's like, okay, I'll give you $20. You say, no, that's my beam. I was my beam. Give me back my beam. So does he have to give you back his beam? Does he have to give you back his beam? I mean, it's your beam. Does he have to give it back to you? The Talmud says no. Yeah, he does. He just has to give you back the equivalent of the beam. And this is called takanas hashavim. We want to allow you to repent. Otherwise it's going to make it too hard for people to repent. We want to make it easier for people to repent. We have to go out of our way to make it easy for people to have a path back to Hashem. If you're going to make this an excessive burden, that's not fair. It's not. Maybe it's fair, but it's not going to make it a better world. You want to make it easier for the person to repent. That's the first element. That's one of the concepts, a very powerful concept of the daf. A second very powerful concept of the daf. I was thinking about this. There's a big story in the next 3 days in the daf, starting at the very, very end of today and going over the next 3 days. Is the stories, the homilies about the destruction of the temple. And the classic story there is the story of Kamsa and Bar Kamsa. It starts today. Have you heard this story? So Kamsa and Bar Kamsa, and there was a man who wanted to invite Kamsa to the wedding. Instead, he invited Bar Kamsa. And when Bar Kamsa showed up, to make a long story short, he humiliated Bar Kamsa. He hated him so much, he wouldn't let him stay. He kicked him out, and that led to the series of events. It led to the destruction of the temple. So the Talmud says at the beginning of this story, because of Kamsa and Bar Kamsa, the temple was destroyed. So the question is, okay, I understand what Bar Kamsa did, but what did Kamsa do? What did Kamsa do? He didn't even know. The invitation was supposed to go to Kamsa and it went to Bar Kamsa. And Bar Kamsa showed up at the wedding. Kamsa never even got the invitation. He never went there. Why was he involved in destroying the temple? You follow the question? You follow the question? So what did Kamsa do wrong? Anybody want to guess? Yeah,
It might be the,
tell me first name again. I know it's Schneider. What's it from? Gilad, yeah, okay.
the Bar Kamsa, like Bar Kamsa.
Yeah.
His son.
Yeah, well, that's what the Marsha says, that Par Kamsa, Gilad, was the son of Kamsa, right? So, but what did Kamsa do wrong?
I guess maybe there's some sort of parental responsibility.
Okay, that's an excellent answer. That he's the father, he should have been responsible for his son. Go back to the officers. But I was thinking about it differently. But your answer is beautiful. I was thinking about it differently. I was thinking like this. So Kamsa was the one who was supposed to be invited to this wedding of this man who hated Bar Kamsa so much he wouldn't let him be there. Bar Kamsa offered to pay for the whole wedding, but Kamsa was going to go to that wedding. How could you be friends with a person who hates your son so much? How could Kamsa have been friends with this man who hated his son with such a passion? How could he have been friends with him? There's something really messed up with Kamsa. Yeah.
Why is the man who behaved so badly at his wedding not just considered culpable?
Right. Why do they say it's because of Kamsa and Bar Kamsa? Why don't they say this man who threw him out of the wedding? Say Kamsa should have told that man from the beginning, this is how you're treating my son? What's the matter with you? Instead, he's like, yeah, I'll go to your wedding if you send me the invitation. I'll go, I'll be fine. Yeah, you're acting like a jerk to my child. Anyway, I don't know if everybody agrees with me on that. That's just my reading of it. So we'll think about it over the next few days. Let's dive in now. Shkoyach.